Welcome back, guys, to another video. In this video, I want to talk about how you in 2026 can start a recruitment, thriving, profitable business. Let's get into it. If you guys are watching this and stumbled upon me for the first time, I definitely am grateful to you. A little bit about me. So I started my recruitment journey in 2014. I was working at a award-winning recruitment company in New York City, paying me $30,000 a year. They had 300 recruiters nationwide. And in one short year, I went from literally being one of the bottom to one of the top, billing over $500,000 in a single year, or even crushing $100,000 months. And at the end of the year, they still pay me $30K. So in 2015, I decided to do the same thing, but this time bet on myself as a solo recruiter, starting my own business. In my first year, I made over $524,000. And then I made between $500,000 to $800,000 net every single year for myself, consecutively for the past 11, 12 years to present day. Now, grateful to say, made over $5 million in placements as a recruiter, changed my life. But I'm super excited for you guys to be here to learn about an industry that literally continues to support and shape my life. And let's get into the video. So when it comes to starting your own business, there are four main pockets that I want to touch upon. Number one is like the basics, the admin stuff, where we're going to go over the website, niche, and your business model. We're going to then move into client acquisition, how to go out there and get clients. And when I say clients, I'm defining them as companies that are hiring in your specific job titles in your market. We're going to go over things like intake calls, launch calls, outreach. Then we're going to switch gears to candidates, right? How to find them, how to source them, how to screen them, how to close them, how to outreach them. And then last but not least, how to work smarter and embrace technology, systems, technology, artificial intelligence, automation, and scaling so that you can go further and faster than ever before. Each step builds on the last, and the ideal order that you want to follow is exactly this, especially with clients and candidates. Too many people do candidates first and then go to clients. Ideally, generally speaking, it's always better to find clients, understand what they're looking for, and then go out there and find the candidates to make that perfect fit. So in a nutshell, guys, this business conceptually is very simple. Step number one, find clients. Step number two, find candidates, put them together, and that's how we get paid. So when it comes to the basic, I want to touch upon a variety of things, including the foundation and business model, right? So this video is going to kind of show with you how to start a business fundamentally, which is so important. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning how to ride a bicycle for the first time, ride a car for the first time. You're going to learn things like, what does a steering wheel do? What does a gas pedal do? What does a clutch do, right? It doesn't matter if then you go into a Ferrari or a Lamborghini if you don't know how to drive. So technology is that level two. Too many people skip the fundamentals and they jump into all the tech and software out there. But the issue is, while you might be able to find some marginal value from that, you're not going to be able to really maximize the true value because you don't know fundamentally how to do every single step correctly as a recruiter. You need to learn that first, and technology then amplifies your skills. So number one, when it comes to the basics, a couple of things to think about is like brand and positioning. So like you want to optimize your website and obviously your LinkedIn profile for both client and candidate purposes. These are important, but these are not that important. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people do is spend way too much time doing these. They spend days and weeks and months trying to perfect their website and LinkedIn. The honest truth is you can still get clients, you can still get candidates without an optimized LinkedIn profile or a website. Do these help? Absolutely. But not every client's going to check you out. Not every candidate's going to check you out, right? This is really for those like small pockets of people that are like, you know what? Who's Preston? I want to check him out. Let's go to his website just to make sure it looks and sounds and reads legit, right? Optically, as a business, you want to have a really good, congruent, solid presence out there. And so yes, do your website, do a LinkedIn profile, but don't waste that much time. Next, the most important thing I think is you really want to focus on like, what kind of business do you want to have, and what market, what industry, what sector, what specialization and job titles are you going to do? This is super, super key. This basically creates the fundamental identity of your business. Are you going to go after every single role on the planet, or are you going to be more specialized? And when I say specialized, I mean specialized by location, maybe by sector, maybe by certain types of roles. Like, are you going to be a chef that cooks everything, or a chef that kind of specializes in sandwiches or specializes in just pasta only? And then from there, you can really create an authority or like a snowball effect that people are referring you, saying, hey, if you want pasta, hey, you want pizza, this is the guy to go to, right? It's very, very important to always have a plan B. And I think the biggest nuances between starting an agency now in 2026 than 2 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago is it's a little bit more competitive, a little bit more noisy. So as a result, I would recommend that if you wanted to create an agency that went after, like, for example, software engineers, every tech recruitment agency on the planet is going after software engineers, but try to niche down. Is there something within software engineers that you can really focus on? Maybe full stack or mobile or certain languages, because that will help you have more of an identity, carve out that space. It's less competitive. And so the chances of you getting responses will be a lot higher, right? Same thing with the industry. So don't just say healthcare, don't just say tech. What specific jobs in healthcare, what specific companies in healthcare do you want to go after? So with everything from the company companies you work at, the positions, the geo, you can always decide if you want to be a generalist or a specialist. I always recommend people to be more focused than usual, but I would say where I'm a little bit evolved or changed now is that instead of like just being really stubborn on just one job title, I think in this landscape, it's definitely more helpful just to have a plan B and plan C and always testing out new markets, because we're not only just recruiters, we're also business owners, and you always want to continually identify other business opportunities that are out there. Once you've done that, you really want to then decide like, what is your business model, right? So like, are you more of international? Are you more of domestic? And the cool thing with international is like, let's say that you lived somewhere else, or maybe you speak different languages. So we have people in my network or even in our program where they can speak Spanish. And by being able to do that, they can not only work with English speaking companies here in the US or around the world, but they can also work, Spanish speaking markets as well, where people like me who can't speak Spanish, I would not be able to work there. So things like, think like Spain or Mexico, Central Latin America, Spanish speaking founders or companies in the US or North America, right? You immediately now have like a multi-pronged strategy and just focus on just one type of company or one country. Pricing, are you more success-based, contingent, which is a lot easier to get clients in the beginning, or you want to do retained, where basically there's infinite amount how you want to calculate it, but retained typically means you get something up front, something throughout milestones in the middle, and then you get like a lump fee or a flat fee at the end upon some sort of milestone or conversion, or embedded, where maybe like you're more hands-on, you help the company with onboarding and HR, perhaps like you physically work out of your client's office. There's so many really cool like variations of models that you can do, and whatever like works best for you, there's something for that. The role types, are you focused on like staffing roles? Are you focused on like contracting roles, or more executive contingent direct placement roles, or C-levels, or international, or like VAs, like, or military veterans? Like there's literally something you can do. If you have an interest or you have a passion, assuming that like make sure that you validate that market, you can start a recruitment business really in any sector industry out there. So it's really like the world is your oyster. Whatever direction you want to go into, you can go into that as long as like you check off certain criteria, like is the market validated, how are the salaries looking, what are the hiring patterns and speed and things like that. You can create a profitable business in any market. So when it comes to your market, niche, and job, this is very important, but you can always change it down the line, and you don't have to like lose sleep or lose weeks or months being like, I don't know what the perfect market is. Like I would rather you just pick one and you can always change it down the line, right? So let's not waste time and let's just take action and move forward. Real quick, if you ever thought about starting your own recruitment agency, or you're a recruiter struggling to land clients, you'll want to check out our coaching and implementation program. Inside, I give you the exact scripts, the outreach templates, and acquisition systems I used to hit over $500,000 my first year, scale to over $100,000 months, and do over $5 million in placements on my own desk. Our students are already hitting $30,000, $50,000, even $80,000 per month or more. Many of them doing it part-time. So if you want to learn the same playbook, the link's below. It's exactly what I use. Now back to the video. Now, once you do step one, we immediately want to go to step one, like part B, where we also cover things like, you want to make sure you have legal contracts. So obviously in our program, we literally share with you the contracts that we use. You can copy and paste them. But if you don't have that, you're not part of our program, I would recommend you can find great templates online. You can also reach out to an attorney. Make sure that even when you draft up an agreement yourself, it defines and goes over really important terms like payables, fee percentages, and guarantee. So guarantee basically allows you to protect your back. So what that means is when you place somebody, and let's say for any reason that person gets terminated, they leave within a certain time frame, are you obligated to find a replacement, or are you going to do a refund, or maybe a combination of both, right? So those three things are the biggest things that every legal contract needs to have at the bare minimum. ATS CRM. So when you are looking to start a business, or maybe you recently started a business, ATS CRM are the most common softwares to have, but they're not the most important, honestly. Like if you're on a budget, you can always use Google or Microsoft Office, which is what I did when I started, but there's so many great ones out there and they're so affordable. So I don't want you to waste time. I don't want you to waste money and wasting stress figuring out which is the best. You can always export all your data into another one. They all do the same thing. It's really to help like your organization, database, management, interview processes. Like these are not going to help you make money. They're not going to help you like get clients. They're not going to help you get candidates. It's really just to kind of make sure all the hard work and the clients and relationships you developed are in one consolidated place. And then of course, like invoicing, payroll, accounting, I would recommend you obviously use an accountant. Invoicing you can do manually. You can do Xero, QuickBooks. There's so many other great softwares and solutions out there. Just pick something that's affordable, that does the job. Now, once we kind of go through that, you really want to then focus on finding clients. This is the most important thing. If you do not know how to find clients, you will not have a business, right? So when it comes to clients, you got to first understand like research and outreach. So what do I mean by that? You got to learn to identify your target clients. Like, so first of all, what are they? Like company size, what market, what are they building, what kind of products, Are they going to be on LinkedIn or Crunchbase? Or maybe you can use other sites that are more industry specific. You want to then be able to find like the actual correct decision makers at these companies, like who you're going to reach out to. And you really want to make sure you reach out to people that have authority in accepting vendors, in working with different partnerships, right? You don't want to go too high, but you definitely don't want to reach out to someone too junior. You want to then be able to like give yourself like an idea of, if I do reach out to them, like what's the signal? Like, do they have an active need? Is it more like long-term nurturing consultative, or is it more like an intro via like referrals or introduction through your network? Once you identified your angle and then the person in the company, you then want to personalize the messages, right? You never want to just blindly use AI or come off super robotic or too professional. And every element in this email has to be perfect. So like you got to personalize it well, subject line, messaging, tone, but also what channels are you going to reach out to them, right? So is it going to be emails, calls, texting, all of the above, a combination of some with a clear call to action? And if I were to just really emphasize one big tip, is make sure you have a clear call to action. So like, what's the point of reaching out to someone if you're not going to make it explicitly clear what you want from that conversation? Do you want coffee? Do you want lunch? Do you want a meeting? Like, what do you want? And if you never ask for it and you don't clearly guide that conversation to a CTA, it's just never going to happen. Are you going to have follow-up? Like, are you going to respond back to them? And if you are going to follow up, how often are you going to follow up? What channel are you going to follow up, right? These are things that are really, really important to think about. Once you actually have a client get back to you, you really want to then have an intake call, which is so important, because if you drop the ball on the intake call, it has a really bad downstream effect and increasing difficulty for the rest of your business. So intake call is where you really pick up the role, understand exactly what they're looking for, making sure that you are absolutely synced, that you're not just going to blindly accept the role, looking for a unicorn that does not exist. You want to accept the role that you are confident in billing and filling. Simple as that. You want to audit their interview stages, make sure it's not too ridiculous, too long, or asking too many assignments from the candidates. You want to agree on submission processes and cadences. You want to also then switch gears to be able to pitch your service, really get them excited and jazzed about working with you, talk about terms, hopefully aligning on the terms, and ideally send in the agreement, go it over and have them e-sign it on that call. That's always best. If not, send in the agreement, try to get some confirmation when they can review and sign it, and then off you go. And once that happens, then you really want to then schedule a launch call, so this is where, like, if you messed up anything in the call, you can have another opportunity to make sure you guys are completely aligned and you feel great. But really, a launch call is to set expectations on submissions, the relationships, the feedbacks, the offer, like what happens when an offer goes out. Are you extending it? Are we extending it? Like, if I were to, submit a candidate, how soon, how long does it take for you to get back to us on feedback? Like, these are really important things to iron out. And then it really just ensures both sides are set up for success. So in an agency business, it's all relationships, right? So whether you're making new friends for a significant other or a good friend of yours, right? It takes two to tango, and it really takes clear communication to make sure that relationship can thrive and it basically meets, all the great kind of expectations on both sides. So once you get a client and you got the agreement signed, you're feeling great, you then want to switch gears to go out there and find candidates, right? So number one, you got to find your candidates. So depending on the sector or industry, are you looking for active candidates or passive? Active are the ones that are actively applying for roles right now. Passive are the ones that are typically happily employed and they're not really going out there and applying to every single job. Are you going to go to job boards, job sites? Are you going to go to sourcing platforms? So for example, job boards in the US, you got Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, ZoomInfo, things like that. For sourcing platforms, you got LinkedIn, Juicebox, Meta, Exa. Like, there's so many sourcing platforms out there. Some of them are great for certain industries, others are better for others, right? It really depends on like what sort of candidates make that perfect sense for your client. And it really depends on the really in-depth questions that you ask on that intake call with the client. And then how are you going to reach out to them, right? So same way for clients, when you're reaching out to clients, what channels, how are you going to get their contact information, messaging, personalizing, call to action, how are you going to follow up? Everything is basically the same here. But here, once you have a candidate get back to you, you want to qualify them, you want to make sure they're a good fit. If they're a good fit, then you submit them, right? If you submit them and they get interviews, amazing. You're well on your way to get more interviews and a final. Every single interview round, then now you have to do process calls. These are an amazing tool for you to utilize to establish that strong relationship with the candidate. You want them to never feel alone throughout the interview process. You want them to feel like you're their confidant, you're their friend in the corner, being with them every step of the way. And process calls are so important to help you uncover blind spots or red flags. Like, if your candidate is interviewing elsewhere, they're about to get an offer, they have real concerns about your clients. These are the things you really want to discover doing these calls so that you can really have the opportunity to address these concerns and make sure your candidate is in a positive mindset as they go deeper in process to the offer and final round, right? Your ideal goal is by the time that they get to the offer, they're excited about your client, they have no concerns, they have no red flags, and they're excited to move forward. When an offer does come out, you are just a step there right before you getting that 5-6 figure fee. You really then want to make sure sure you have that good handle on the offer and closing segment, right? You want to really be able to control that process so that probability is never 50-50 or under that. If you do process calls well, what you want to do is when an offer comes out, it should absolutely be greater than 50% that the candidate will accept. Ideally, for our agency, when an offer comes out, we're looking at the 70 to 90% that an offer does go our way. And if it's lower than that, we should know, because we do process calls really well, what are the reason or the couple reasons that are leading up to that possible obstacle that's blocking us from our candidate accepting. And we will do whatever we can so that they feel good, we address it, we mitigate those from happening as much as possible. It could be salary, it could be like questions about the founder, questions about the role, the job title, it could be start date, it could be any number of things. And you don't want to just wait until the offer and closing final stage to discover these for the first time. Like, you want to be aware of these way before when, so when you get to the offer and closing, everything is addressed, signed, sealed, and delivered. Now, once you do that, I want you to put in those reps and make sure you're able to kind of go through multiple placements a couple times, right? Fundamentally, that's super important. And now you're able to get the hang of it. Like, okay, cool. Now I want to build a business. I see real money. I want to be able to focus on sustainability and have a good work-life balance. And that's where, as a final step, you really have to focus on optimizing and automating. So once you understand the fundamentals, it's crucial to reclaim your time. So the first 5 years, I made my first couple $1 million as a recruiter, but I also burned out, right? I also couldn't enjoy the weekends or vacations. I was not the best partner. I was not the best friend. The business was all consuming. But when automation and AI came, I was able to save hours each day where I'm still able to make the same level of income and lifestyle, but now work a lot less. And it's because of technology. And of course, because now I have a team. And so I can get a lot of time back now, enjoying freedom in a long time. So when it comes to like optimizing and automating, it really depends also on your budget. But I think if you were to automate, optimize everything, there's no reason for you to spend more than $300 to $500 a month max on a fully systemized full recruitment desk end to end. And so it's very affordable, right? But even if you don't have that, that's okay. You can just focus on automating over time. But if you look at your desk, you look down, you see clients, can't, all the things you have to do every single day, you want to be able to see where are my biggest time sink. And generally your biggest time sink will probably go into like the research part for clients and candidates, maybe the outreach part, the following up part, the sourcing, saving to lists. And so you really want to just be able to kind of check off all of those and make sure you can have technology do everything for you, so that if you're able to do it correctly, recruiters can really focus on what we do best, which is talking and closing clients, candidates, making relationships, doing placements, rinse and repeat. As a full desk, one more quick tip I want to share with you is typically it's also very, very helpful for you to be able to split up your day depending on client responsibilities and candidate responsibilities. So whether you're doing this full-time or part-time, for example, like you maybe want to have your first couple of hours on clients and the rest on candidates. So if you're doing a full-time, I typically spend, in the beginning, several hours in the morning on clients, the rest of the day on candidates, instead of going back and forth, which just drive you insane. But it's because of like this technology and artificial intelligence, AI, automation, it's easier now than ever for people to start a business quickly, affordably, even part-time than ever before. This is like the biggest renaissance golden era of recruitment, where small teams, solo recruiters like you, people doing it part-time can outbill, can outcompete larger teams who are simply way more inefficient. This step 4, even though it may seem like a small one slide, is everything, right? So I think like 90% of it obviously should be understanding how to be a recruiter fundamentally, but that really 10% that's going to really determine the people who are moving fast, billing consistently, to people who are billing but maybe going a little bit slower. You do not want to get left behind. Technology, automation, AI is there to help us do our jobs better. And the recruiters and teams, you can still make money doing everything manually, but they will absolutely get left behind and be outcompeted. Simple as that moving forward. So I hope that this video helps. If you guys have started a business, we'd love to know what industry you're in. If you're thinking about it, we'd love to answer your questions. Comment down below. And I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.